I am not a feminist. So let me explain myself before you lose your socks. I used to call myself a feminist, but over time I started realizing that other women had a different definition for the term than me. I was brought up in a religious household, and until 9th grade attended ultra-religious schools. These schools were, of course, all girls schools and had very strict dress codes, like only wearing skirts, you had to cover your ankles, your elbows, your collarbone. Makeup had to look natural, you couldn't wear anything bright red or graphic, and the list goes on and on. Basically, the reason for that was to not draw attention or call attention to ourselves from men. Because dressing a certain way, according to what I was learning in this school, will call unwanted attention from men. Talking to boys who aren't your family or something like that wasn't allowed. Touching boys wasn't allowed. Dating someone is only for the purpose of marriage, and premarital sex is basically not allowed, a bad thing, and if you do that, then your value is... So all these things were taught to me when I was in school, and even from a really young age, I kind of felt that these things were extreme. And I couldn't help thinking, well, I know people, I have family and friends who don't live like this, and they're not bad people. To be clear, my family never held such high standards in regards to religion, but I did attend a school that did. So even though my family wasn't that religious, my school was. So I was learning this, even if at home it wasn't exactly what I was told. I found it ridiculous that my purpose in life was to live by this certain standards where I had to dress modestly, I had to marry a good religious man, and had to have babies. And that was my purpose in life. I found this unfair, and I think from there stemmed my feelings of kind of oppression from this male-dominated community where I started kind of calling myself a feminist. At the time, how I defined feminism was being equal to men. Women and men being equal in all regards. I truly just believed in this equality between the two sexes. And it was never about anything else. That was all I felt about the term feminism when I called myself a feminist. So going back to when I was in school, in about 8th grade, I became a vegetarian. And eventually, I came across the term speciesist or speciesism. And that term really clicked with me. For me, as someone who strongly believes in equality between all people, that to me was something that made sense right away. And eventually I discovered veganism, and that became a big part of my identity. This video is not about veganism, and I'm not going to preach that, so don't worry about that. Eventually, I also learned about gender identity and gender being a spectrum, and that just clicked with me as well. So this was all within my development of my equality identity. Over time, as I started to learn more about people and the world we live in, I started realizing that there are so many types of people, and all of these different types of people deserve equality. Now, I'm not labeling all feminists. The women that I came across who labeled themselves feminists, or women that I would see online, they seem to define it very differently than what I did. They demanded equal rights to men only when it benefits them as a woman. For example, women should get the same exact pay as men. If a woman is working in the same exact job, in the same position with the same education as a man, why shouldn't she get the same pay in this day and age? Totally legitimate, right? But here in Israel, it's mandatory to serve in the military at the age of 18. Women only do 2 years and men do 3. There are exceptions, but for the greater majority, this is true. Well, if you believe that a woman should get the same salary as a man in the same position, then shouldn't you believe that a woman would have to serve the same amount of time as a man, serving in the same base, with the same pay, in the same military, with the same job? Or let's just not bring that up, because you want to be equal to men when it works out for you. But when it's something that's already to your benefit, then that's okay, we'll just leave it alone. It's completely stupid. Why should I get less pay because I have a vagina, yet a man have to do a whole extra year of military service because he has a penis? It's the same inequality. There's absolutely no reason why either of them should exist. I am completely against the time difference in service, in a military service here in Israel. I think it's ridiculous. That being said, when I joined the military, I decided to volunteer to be a combat fighter where I would do 3 years and reserves until the age of 45, the exact same thing that men do in Israel. Now granted, I had other reasons for wanting to do the job, that I found it interesting and I wanted the challenge, but in addition to it, what was great, and I didn't care to sign the documents saying that I would do extra time, is I felt that it was just right for me to do the exact same thing as a man.